I'm Holly, and I'm a massive fan of Spider-Man and Lego. 1.5 years later, after the release of No Way Home, which was one of my favorite cinema experiences ever, Lego finally released a set that every Spider-Man fan had been waiting for. And that was set 76261, Spider-Man Final Battle. The set retails for 170 Australian dollars, 110 US dollars, and 95 Great British pounds, but they didn't stop there because earlier this year they followed up with a sort of sequel slash expansion set, which is the Spider-Man vs. Sandman Final Battle. This is set number 76280 and costs 70 Australian dollars, 38 US dollars, and 32 Great British pounds. Each set is meant to represent the final battle around the Statue of Liberty at the end of No Way Home. However, they do it both very differently. Yeah, they're both filled with minifigures and have a black base, but the way that these sets feel and look on a shelf is completely different, and this one in particular really surprised me, and not in the best way. By far, the main selling point of this set to me was the fact that it could combine with the No Way Home final battle, but my issue was just looking at this set, it didn't look like it was going to be a good enough standalone set, and rather just a glorified expansion piece to the No Way Home set, which basically, you know, it is. I feel like as a Lego set, it should still be able to stand on its own. But before we get into that, let's talk about the original set. Lego Marvel over the last couple of years to me had felt really disappointing. There had been a couple of really solid one-off sets, and things like the Daily Bugle and the Sanctum Sanctorum are obvious standouts to me just because of how much I love locations. So when the No Way Home set came out looking a lot more like a display piece at a playset's price point, jam-packed full of minifigures, I got so excited. First up is the Tom Holland Spider-Man, and it's a really nice version of his suit, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. However, out of the 3 Spider-Man in this set, he's the only one to include leg printing, and I feel like it really elevates him. His alternate head is one of the most basic Lego minifigure heads, and he also comes with the classic kind of tousled hairpiece. Next up is the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and he is incredibly nostalgic and a huge upgrade from the 2002 version. Instead of having these giant silver eyes, they've shrunken them down a little bit and also added some more colors to just make it seem like there's a little bit more depth. And overall, the suit is very simple, but I love that they were still able to include a lot of really nice detail and have everything look incredibly clean. As for Tobey Maguire's head, he uses that young Han Solo head and just has that kind of short Mutt Williams hair. And our third and final Spider-Man is the most anticipated one for me, and that is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. Unlike the Comic-Con version though, they did upgrade him in some ways by having dual molded legs, and like the Tobey Maguire version, they did actually switch up his eyes and they're no longer quite as reflective. There is a lot of bias, but the Andrew Garfield suit is definitely my favorite. However, I really am not a fan of the head and hair that they gave him. Next up we have Ned, who I really think is a downgrade from the version that was included in a minifigure pack a couple of years ago. This time they switched out his hair to be black. His face print looks pretty cool, but his jacket and his pants I just don't really think look that great. MJ on the other hand I think looks fantastic. I absolutely love this face print for Zendaya, and I think her torso as well is fantastic. Next up we have Doctor Strange, and if there was one minifigure that I would change out in this set, it would be him. I really feel like he should have been switched out with the lizard, but then again they wouldn't have made this kind of expansion set. Whilst he's included in the scene and is a pretty important part of the story, I just feel like he is so simple, and I mean that's probably the reason why they put him in, just so that they didn't have to redo any new prints for him. Speaking of printing though, Doc Ock is actually one of very few villains in this set to get some leg printing, and it makes a lot of sense. Lego is putting a lot of minifigures in. They do have to be a little bit restrictive with how many prints they're dishing out. And I feel like in this case, it certainly worked, and it's the same reason as well why I feel like they went for, again, that Mutt Williams hair instead of doing a different hairpiece. But overall, I think this minifigure is fantastic. I love the face print, and I think the Doc Ock arms work really well. Next up, we have Electro, and those lightning pieces are a real showstopper. They look fantastic. They are so cool. However, they are a little bit flimsy and really easy to knock off, so do be aware of that. Like Doc Ock, Electro does come with a little bit of leg printing, but to me, the torso and the face print are really what takes the cake here. And I get why there was only one side to Electro's face due to the hairpiece, but I would have loved to have seen a version of his face without the giant star mask on him. Next up is the Green Goblin, who comes complete with his glider, and I think out of all of the villains, he definitely is the most simple. The glider design is pretty cute. However, please note that I'm actually missing pieces from my glider. I'm missing one of the purple shields on the wing, as well as one of the blue blasts from the back. But besides that, I really like the glider's design, and I think it's really good that the Green Goblin came along with some of the pumpkin bombs, even though they are the most basic designed things ever because of how restrictive Lego was being with their printing budget. At the end of the day, I honestly would
have loved to have sacrificed Doctor Strange and Ned in order to get some more detail on these minifigures, because to me, the Green Goblin just looks very bland. However, I think the graphic designers did an incredible job at capturing Willem Dafoe's face on both of his prints. They are absolutely fantastic, and I think his torso looks really good too. I just would have loved to have seen some sort of alternate purple hood piece, or honestly, even better, some printed legs.
When it comes to the build though, at the time, it was one of only 2 Marvel sets that had featured this new black round base sort of thing, which to me felt like a way of elevating the sets and making them feel a little bit more display friendly and less super kiddie and playset like. I'm personally a really big fan of display sets. I love something that will look really nice on my shelf, but I don't necessarily want to keep buying hundreds of dollars worth of giant Marvel sets that I just have no space to store, and this felt like the perfect compromise. Interestingly enough as well, to me, this set felt very similar to the way that the Bugle as a set is set up. Both of them build-wise look really good, but for the most part are pretty plain and serve as a really nice backdrop to create some sort of action and motion using all of the minifigures that the set provides you. However, it is very prominent that if you took off every single minifigure, the build itself does feel a little bland at times. But that aside, I do think the build itself is really interesting, and the main part of it is a Statue of Liberty head. They didn't do the whole body, but I feel like the head in this case was enough, and interestingly enough too, it is actually very similar, if not almost the exact same design as the Apocalypseburg set that released alongside the Lego Movie 2. I thought this was such a fun Easter egg for Lego fans, but also an incredibly smart reuse, and just made everything feel a little bit more consistent, because I feel like that Statue of Liberty head worked really well, and scale-wise for a set of this size, again, was perfect. The head is built up on the base and surrounded by a bunch of tan tiles to represent the Sandman and just really make him some sort of a feature in this set. Even though it is quite minimal, I find it a really nice touch. Outside of that, the build is just surrounded by a bunch of scaffolding pieces, which I find to be quite nice as it allows a lot of areas for minifigures to hold onto and provides a lot of levels and really helps showcase the battle portion of this final battle. When you turn her around though, at the back of her head, there is this really nice feature where you can flip the entire back end down of her hair, and there is a little portal with a stickered panel of the Sanctum Sanctorum through it, and I love things like this. One thing that does irritate me a little bit though is that when you close it up, you can still see the sides of the portal sticking out. However, with all of the scaffolding and the minifigures, it does kind of start to blend in a little bit more. Also introduced in this Marvel wave and shown in this set are these new little curved clear pieces that offer a lot more action. They're attached to the build using a tiny axle joint and are kind of scattered around the build in order to create a little bit more motion. So for example, there's one in use with the Goblin's glider, there's also one for Electro to stand on, and lastly one for MJ to kind of fall off the scaffolding on, and all of these really help capture the motion a lot easier. Otherwise, I feel like there'd just be a lot of characters running on the scaffolding. And on its own, I think this set is absolutely fantastic. However, I can't really say the same about its sequel. I was so excited for this, and on the box, I think this set looks incredible, but after building it, I just felt really disappointed and borderline ripped off, to be completely honest. For its price point and how much is actually included in this expansion, it feels like I am getting the bare minimum and just not getting a lot of value. I look at the set and basically you get this half-built sort of structure, kind of action figure of the Sandman, and 2 little side builds. There's not really a lot on offer. Outside of this set feeling like a cash grab for anyone who bought the original set, it is nice to have something that focuses a little bit more on the Sandman, but more importantly includes the Lizard, because he got completely cut from the original set, and personally I would have rather sacrificed Doctor Strange to have the Lizard. But overall, to me, this set feels like it was half done. After putting these 2 side by side, I noticed that they took out the really cool electric pieces for Electro and just gave him some standard electricity rods, which really did not feel all that special. I mean, the Sandman build is pretty cool, the Lizard as a minifigure is pretty sick, but in terms of just like creativity and build, like this didn't really showcase or even tell us that this is around the Statue of Liberty besides the set title. In the back of the instructions, it tells you how to remove the Sandman and put it in, but one thing I found really interesting is that it actually shows you 2 different photos of the set combined. The instructions itself just say, hey, remove the Sandman and place him right in the middle. But in a couple of the other photos, you'll notice that they also have the giant yellow piece attached, as well as that tiny little bit of scaffolding. Both of those are actually built so that you can remove them and just attach them to some of the additional scaffolding pieces on the back of the No Way Home set. This definitely makes the set feel a little bit better to me, because it doesn't feel like I'm just buying it for the Sandman in order to combine him with the Statue of Liberty head. Like almost every single piece of the build pretty much is being used. But either way, I was just still really disappointed in how this set performs as a Lego set on its own. When it comes to the Sandman, there's a little bit of motion. You can bend his elbow, you can rotate his shoulder joint, you can move his hands around. So there's a little bit of play there, but otherwise there aren't really any other play features in something that is a play set. And I say that knowing full well that this kind of leans towards more of the display side of things, but it just really feels like there needed to be something else for a set of this price. But ultimately, I bought this set to be combined with another set, and when I did that, I feel like I got a really cool display piece. I definitely don't think though that it was worth the price that it ended up costing me. Both of these sets are far from perfect, but despite that, I still have a fantastic time with them. They make me incredibly happy. I love seeing them on my shelf, and I think combined, they are fantastic. Just be very wary with the price because that is the biggest issue, especially when it comes to this smaller set. Let me know if you plan on expanding your No Way Home set, and if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time, I'll see you later.